What's up, everyone? We're here, episode 44 of the Coast to Coast NHL podcast. Me and Tori, 2021 season. Trade deadline weekend, something a bit ago. We got some more news going around the NHL this week. Some interesting developments across the board, I would say. And yeah, and the playoff race is basically 10 games for most teams away from the playoffs, and potentially we're going to start seeing some clinches. I don't think we've seen an official clinch yet. I was looking today, I didn't see an X, so that's why I'm saying that. But
yeah, I haven't done the math quite yet. I think we're a little far out for that, but I think that it's getting, within a couple games of starting to look at that. I think maybe Buffalo and the Ottawas and stuff must be getting close.
Well, to being eliminated mathematically, I'm sure some of them are. But as for mathematically clinched, we're still waiting for, I think, that first team to get there. But I think by this time next week, when we're doing the podcast, I'm sure there'll be one or two teams that we can touch on. But yeah, let's get into it. We got quite a few things to go over. I know we got our favorite segment, of course, with the 3 stars. Everyone loves that thing. And one of your favorites, where we look over kind of like the standings, where we're ranking teams, where we see teams going. We haven't done that in a while on the podcast. Last season we were doing it every week almost. So it's time to do it for this time, for sure. So.
Yeah, I mean, let's get right into it, I guess, since we have a few topics here. The first one, I guess, is I just wanted to congratulate Patrick Marleau. I know we talked a couple times on whether or not he was going to hit the record, and to be honest, I did not know that it did not include playoff games. I thought it did. It's only regular season games, and I thought he needed to play next year to get it. So my math must have been off in what I thought it was. But yeah, he set the record, or maybe this is one of another record, like maybe there's still another record that he's yet to set for total games.
That's possible too, yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm confusing. I don't know. I'm kind of spitballing right here, but I know that I kind of didn't know that it was just
regular season record.
This one, and that he got it. But yeah.
Wow, yeah, big congratulations for him. I was actually in the arena when I forget now what milestone he scored against the Vancouver Canucks. It would have been 2 years ago. He scored. It was a goal. Maybe it was 1,000th point, 500th goal. It's one of those miles.
He was a Leaf?
He was a Leaf, yeah.
Okay.
No, wait, no, he was a Shark. He was a Shark.
Okay.
He was a Shark, because I never seen the Leafs play, so.
Okay, you saw them playing Vancouver, right?
Yeah, in Vancouver, Marleau. And I just remember, this was, the whole stadium was on their feet clapping for this guy, because there was a big milestone, and as we all know, Marleau's kind of like, I've known him forever. You've known him forever. Like, he's been around ever since. Was it in our group that there was like a stat thrown where he's played with like 73 or some percent of all NHL players of all time or something?
No, it wasn't that high. I think it was 23%, but still in the history of the NHL, every player that has dressed up for one game or more, he has dressed up in a game to face 23% of them.
Wow.
Which is mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling.
Like crazy, but
yeah,
I mean, theoretically, that percent will always go down, right, as we progress. But still, in the time that the record was obtained, crazy. And which obviously leads to the next topic, which I have here as aging athletes, because they're talking about it and they were disputing it on TSN the other day, and they had a lot of good points on both sides. So I actually wanted to kind of get your opinion. To do the math, to break the actual math down for regular season games, you'd have to play 23 seasons without missing a game.
Wow.
So just let that sink in for a sec.
So basically, start when you're 18 and then go to 41, but also not miss a single game.
0 injuries, 0 strikes. You got lockouts.
No suspensions. No suspensions. You have to be good enough to make the lineup every single game.
Yeah, no COVID postponed games. Like, you don't know, right? Like
COVID 27.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, people went to war. Like, there's a million different reasons you could put out there to prevent people from progressing to that record, which led to the next part of the conversation is, will we see it again?
Yeah.
And immediately I was like, never. And I think you and I both said, like,
I was
never,
right on board.
never.
I totally agreed with you right away. Yeah.
And then I was like, hold up. If you put aside the fact that probably no one's going to want to play 25 seasons of something. Like most athletes these days have other interests as well. So like I feel like once they get to a certain point, if they're not chasing a cup, a lot of people might opt to go and do the other passion they have.
Yeah.
Or they already have the money to fund what they really want to do in life kind of thing. But then I also thought about it and I was like, the way that we've talked about the NHL in the last little bit, it's becoming less physically demanding because there's less big hits, there's less fighting, there's less of these other things. And as we think it's going to progress, penalties will also get away from these big goons that do these things, right? So in theory, if you start at 18 and you don't have injuries, you're like a Phil Castle, you're like one of these guys who doesn't really go to the dirty areas, but you play every game and you play until you're 46 because you haven't had the wear and tear on a traditional hockey player's career, right? There might not be the multiple knee injuries, shoulder injuries, concussions, stuff like that. And I was like, if you look at that as the one bookend, I'm not as slam dunk it will never happen again. Maybe it will, but I'm still on the highly unlikely, but I'm not on the train of never again anymore.
See, I just think the era of being able to play that many games is over because, like, unless this is, I guess, a huge asterisk is that if somehow the league turns into 40 teams, 45 teams, like where a player can play for that long, I just think the talent turnover, along with the way sports science is kind of going, you see it in basketball where they take maintenance days. I just feel like that is like the future, kind of like with goalies possibly alternating, might turn into hockey players doing that. Because like the one, like you see it with Cal Ripken in baseball, that consecutive Ironman record is going to be one that probably stands the test of time, and this could potentially turn into that very same thing.
And I was going to say the thing that you could probably link it to or compare it to as a precedent is back in the day, we used to see these hockey players come up, make their break into the NHL and stay with them for 10, 12, 14, 16 years, right? You look at the legends because they stayed with their one team. Now in the NHL, probably half of the league or more has played for at least two or more teams. So I feel like there's less opportunity to also build those legends and to also see those games played. So as using that as an example, I feel like it's the same kind of trajectory where it's just not going to relate. But who knows, right? Like if you happen to be, who knows, right? Like, because if the league gets rid of these Wilsons, gets rid of these guys, these big monsters, or if they turn into big monsters who can just skate just like everyone else, like that will be the day where things change, because it will be like, I can punch you in the face. I can break your leg and ruin your life, but I'm choosing not to because I can also skate around you, almost like a headman, right?
Yeah, I'm going to catch you off guard here. I don't know if you'll know the answer. Do you know who right now is second on the list, like active player?
Like second active player?
Yeah, like
Joe
active
Thornton.
right now. Okay, Joe Thornton. So
yeah, Joe Thornton, and I think he's like 70-ish games behind, so he'd have to play another year, assuming he got in every game, or 2 years if he didn't play every game due to injury, shortened season, whatever.
Honestly, that seems pretty possible. Like, I didn't realize if he's that close.
Joe already said he said he has no interest in getting that record.
Yeah, so
he says he's
does
not
he think
looking
does he say he's done at the end of this year? Then I guess
that's how I read it. That reading between the lines, that's how I read it, was him saying, "I'm not going to chase it because that means I have to come back next year." I honestly think, especially if everything is still as it is, I think he'll be moving to Switzerland to be with his wife because she was born there, I think it is. So she's a dual citizen, and he was playing for Zurich, was it, in Switzerland? Remember when he was playing there for the beginning of the year before he came over for the Leafs? He could go there and play for 3, 4, 5 years and be a fan favorite and like ride off in the sun. Like, I think he's all in this year. And I think that's why he came to the Leafs. So I don't think he's going to break it. But the third active player, or the next active player, is Zdeno Chara. But same thing. He'd have to play like 2 more years.
Yeah, and he's like 45. I don't know. I'm just making up.
Theoretically, as a giant that he is, he doesn't have to move around a lot. He could be, as a third pairing, penalty kill and shutdown type guy only, or even a guy that somebody suggested play him at the wing occasionally, like use him as like a seventh defenseman slash
yeah,
last line, which teams have done before, right? And like if you did that, maybe he's useful, but every game, I don't think every game.
Yeah.
So like I don't think either of those guys will get there.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, next topic we have here is medical reports.
Yeah, I haven't heard. This is new to me, so you have to take the reins on this. I know we've been talking about possibility, but I don't know if it's the same thing.
Yeah, so I was reading a couple articles, and then I was kind of poking around and chatting with a couple people, and it sounds, I'm quite convinced based on who I was talking to that the NHL's asked for some teams. They've asked for medical reports for some teams.
Just like for the whole team, like all the players?
Well, that's all that was really said. So like, I mean,
is this like a stretch for vaccination records? Like, what is this?
What do you mean?
Like, are they just trying to figure out who's been vaccinated on all the teams? I guess they.
Oh, no. Sorry. I should have clarified that. For these cap shenanigans that they're calling it. Specifically in the article that I was reading out, they were calling out Tampa Bay and Toronto. Toronto for the Freddie Anderson situation and Tampa Bay for the Kucherov situation. And some were also speculating potentially Dallas. But I don't think Dallas would hold out good players because they're in the thick of a race, right? It's not like Tampa or Toronto, who knows their best hockey is still yet to come, hopefully in the playoffs once they're full staffed. But yeah, so I don't know if that means Toronto and Tampa have been asked. I don't know the teams. I don't know the players, but multiple reports have been requested.
Yeah, but to me, even if they are faking, it doesn't matter because medical reports can be written in a way. Trust me, I know. I work in this industry. I see them on a daily basis. They can be written in a way that can portray a side's perspective the way that best suits the decision they want to make.
Yeah.
Definitely if it's written by their own team doctors. Like,
but what if theoretically there was some sort of shenanigans, what would you consider that?
I don't know how they could find shenanigan. Like, but what could it? I don't think they could possibly find a shenanigan in here because in a medical report, all it has to say is, I recommend him to take it easy, and maybe he's not quite ready to fulfill the full duties of hockey. Like, it's pretty simple that any doctor would sign off on.
What I was getting at was the competitive balance.
Oh, okay. The competitive advantage?
It affects the competitive balance or the competitive advantage of certain teams, does it not?
Oh, yeah.
So that brings us to our next topic.
Every team can do it. Yeah.
And I know you watched the interview recently because I had said make
I'm
sure
glad
you watch it.
told me to watch it because I really enjoyed it.
It was something that is completely not hockey. That was something you never see in hockey. And I think every hockey fan needs to see that because you could, what I got out of that was that he is a, what do you call them?
Robin Lehner interview, just in case we haven't.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. The Robin Lehner interview. Yeah. He's by listening to him speak clearly, other players look up to him and use him as like their guy in secrecy and lean on him for his opinion and trust him. So like you can tell he's trying to navigate the line between like, what can I say without like, throwing the guys who look up into me under the bus, but how can I also say what needs to be said at the same time? That's what I got out of it.
I personally got, like, for me, I got out of it, like, a guy standing up to the practices. And this, to me, this speaks outside of even just hockey. He's standing up to the practices of corporate business America. It's not just America, but corporate America. Standing up to that and being like, listen, like, I see it too with people outside of hockey. Like, the mental health aspect of people just isn't given the respect it deserves. And he's turning into this role model in a way for more than just hockey. He's just stepping up and he's speaking out for something that matters and what he truly believes in. And you can see from the way he talks about that and he comes out and explains he's bipolar and all these things. He's been there, he's done. It's not just someone advocating that hasn't been there and seen it all.
But think about this. I've never heard about this bipolar thing, and I thought that was brave of him for him to share that. Let me ask you, if you're one of 30 general managers, and he advises this just before he's going to free agency, does he get the same contract that he got knowing that you have a bipolar goalie?
I would probably say no, but it's kind of unfair because realistically,
absolutely it is.
He's bipolar, like it is, but it's kind of like, I don't know. Do you get the goalie that's bipolar, or do you get the goalie that's not?
And the reason why we're kind of speaking like this is obviously because within the sport of hockey, goalies are kind of on their own island. Like the goalies are the last line of defense. They often get blamed when things aren't going well, even though it's not their fault. And when things are going well, they don't get the credit often they deserve. They're kind of the unsung hero. It's expected for them to be a certain level. And that's why, to me, like if you're a right winger or even like a third line defenseman or the fourth line center, and you're not quite right, and you ask the coach or somebody like, hey, I need a couple days, probably going to get that. No problem.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But if you're a $6 million goalie and you say, hey, I need a week to get my mind right, okay, sorry, we can't because of the cap and because, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's where there's problems. And I'm glad he kind of got into that.
Yeah, it was definitely...
But anybody that hasn't seen it, go watch it.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. I also did like how he touched on the way life is as them, because you don't really know what it's like for them off the ice. You just kind of see them playing the ice. They're happy on the ice, all that. But like he hits home where, and this is going to sound bad, but to me it kind of sounded like, in a way, these hockey players are like circus animals, the way he explained it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, they're out there performing for you and I as entertainers, and then but once the circus packs up and goes, they go back into their cages where they're not allowed to leave their home, is what he emphasized. When they're on the road, they're not allowed to leave their hotel, go out and eat, all that stuff. So like, to me, I can only imagine, like, we all look at them like they have the best jobs in the world, but
and the reason why I mentioned the whole competitive balance thing off the top is that he mentions that several times towards the end of the interview, basically citing that the NHL told him the reason why they're doing these things. And it's somewhat of a valid reason, because if the teams in Canada can't get a vaccine, which means they're stuck in a hotel room, how is it fair to have that whole division still under those conditions versus Vegas and Colorado, who's going out for dinner and hanging out with their family and feeling good, like not in the same mental zone, right? Like going into the playoffs, you could argue one way, fight or flight. People are in a different state of mind, or you could argue the other way that people are more comfortable and they get the job done.
Yeah, which was funny though, because he also hit on the fact that in the bubble last year, how the one bubble was in that kind of lockdown, whereas the other bubble had that advantage of not. And sure enough,
and they were golfing and kayaking. And
sure
stuff
enough,
like that.
That's the bubble that won the cup. So like, how much did that play into the competitive advantage? We'll never know, but I'm sure it helped.
But he said even the coffee and stuff. He said the one in Toronto was Starbucks, and he said another coffee was just brought in from a local distributor. And like, I mean, to each their own on opinion on coffee and stuff, but that's just an example of, Starbucks is an X level and this is the other X level. If that's not the same, then you can't say this other situation has to be the same, or over here has to be the same, and this has to be the same. Well, what is it? Are they the same or are they not the same? Like, you can't contradict yourself and then just be like, oh, well, rules, and then back off and not take responsibility. And this circles back to the thing we've come across multiple times, is that I've said it anyways, I feel like the NHL is lacking responsibility, taking ownership for shit that's going on and not being transparent and not being precise in a world right now that's demanding that.
Transparency for sure. The one thing that I'm interested, especially as a Vegas fan, is I'm curious how his teammates react to this kind of thing. They're right in the thick of a kind of huge playoff run, potential chance at a cup. Like, these guys want all the focus on that, and I know this would be a selfish way to go about it, but like, to him to come out and, like, I'm sure it's detracting a bit from what they're trying to do. I'm wondering if there's going to be any tough love or like a little bit of resentment in the locker room. I hope not, because that locker room to me is one of the stronger ones, so I hope that he has the support of his teammates.
I think there's one loser in this situation. Who do you think it is?
Uh,
I can't really call it a loser, but in definition of this situation, he'd be defined as a loser, and it's Marc-Andre Fleury. And the reason I say that is because this is the type of situation I think is what you're getting at there is it either makes or breaks you. It's something that either gels the team together or breaks them apart and ruins them.
mm-hmm.
And I feel like by doing that, Leonard has basically like stood up as the leader and said, like, regardless of what happens, like, I'm going to take this head on. Are you with me, boys, or not? But then you can't be like, okay, let's throw Fleury in net. Like, you have to put him in net. And I think that over the next 2 or 3 series that they play, I think you're going to see Fleury starting to lose games and Leonard starting to take more.
Disagree.
I think you have to, or you kind of...
No, I think the way Vegas is built, they're just such a good unit. They're used to this setup of the goalies flip flopping. It's just how they're going. Come playoff time, I'm interested. I have no idea how they're going to do it come playoff time because come playoff time, you don't flip flop goalies.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah, so it'll be interesting.
And that's what I always circle back to when we talk about the whole goaltending tandems in the future. Is that sure? I can see that in the regular season with the sports science and all these other things. Why you'd want to do that? And I could see in a cap world, you don't have to spend as much as on a goalie. And if that goalie happens to be shit or misses out, you're less cap strapped and less screwed in that sense. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. I know they're
different beast.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I just think I think him and Fleury together are like they're like best buds. I don't
best tandem in the league for sure.
Yeah. Next up, we wanted to talk about this Edler suspension, and honestly, I didn't even know he was suspended. So this, boo! I'm
As
not
a
doing.
Leaf fan, boo. Even being in Vancouver, well, I guess you don't have sports radio, right? So I guess you don't have the feed, let's call it, as you did before.
Unfortunately, not. And to be honest, like, full disclosures, baseball has taken over a little bit. Like, before I was watching hockey all day, every night, all time. So now I have to split it at least. So I'm not.
The question is, once playoffs start, are you going to still be that way, or are you going to shift towards playoff hockey?
I'll probably have to split towards shift towards playoff hockey. But with the daily baseball show I got going on too, does require a little bit of paying attention.
Just a little bit.
But hockey playoff time is going to be good. It's this playoff race, this podcast and all that really keeps me in line. With fantasy ending last week in that one league, I even forgot to set my other lineup this week once because I'm so used to like going in, but in my mind it's over. Like,
yeah.
So I just need that extra kick. I think I need some playoff hockey because for the most part Vegas games have been whatever lately because they've been playing crappy teams and it's just been whatever hockey. So,
well, I think that you're going to see a little bit more intense hockey in these last few games. Like I know when we first saw the new division start up, there was a lot of intense games, and then everyone kind of just settled in because they knew like we can't go to war for 60 something games. Like let's chill out so that we can actually get there and then start pumping it up again. Like I think in the next 4 or 5 games, with what we're talking about with eliminations or clinching, I think you're also going to see a lot more, division battles up for grabs. Like maybe I haven't looked at the schedule, but I think Colorado will probably play Vegas over the next couple weeks. That will be a good one. Like, it'll be good. So
yeah, agreed. All right, but Adler suspension. Run me through it. What happened here?
So he was on the ice for the Leafs had them hemmed in. And obviously Vancouver was coming off the long delay with the COVID and stuff. So I have to suspect that a lot of their players were not 100%. They were probably gassed to begin with. So because they had them, like they were all over them in terms of like possession in the offensive zone and whatnot. But I think that Edler's shift time was like 3 minutes and like 10 seconds. Like it was the last time I looked at the counter, it was like 2:35. And then like the puck went out and then he did that. So it was another like 20 seconds on top, 30 seconds on top of that. So let's call it a 3-minute shift. At the end of the shift, you could tell he was just like gassed. And when you're gassed, you're not like, that's what I was thinking about too, is if you're about to run into somebody and you have energy, you're going to spin, you're going to like move out of the way. You have a lot more energy to be agile. At the end of the shift, you're just gonna be like, run into me. Like I got it, kiddo. You know what I mean? Like, just like, I'm not spending any extra energy. I'm going over here. So anyways, he's going through near the just outside the blue line, and Zach Hyman's coming through, and he pulls the puck off to the side, and because he's drained, because he's been on the ice, he just plants his feet, and he doesn't.
Is this why Zach Hyman's hurt right now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So he was going to the bench, and he just planted and was like, whatever's going to happen to you is going to happen to you. I'm tired. I can't do anything. And Hyman probably expected most guys at that time, they'd get out of the way, right? Like they'd move their leg because they have energy and stuff like that. Yeah. So he didn't, and he clipped Hyman's knee, and now Hyman has a sprain of his ACL that was surgically repaired last year. Yeah. So
how many games did he get? 1? 2?
2. And I think he would have got 1, but then obviously, never mind. He would have missed the Leaf series anyways, but.
Okay.
Because he hasn't had a offense in the last 18 months, he's not a repeat offender, even though he has multiple suspensions and fines in the past for dirty incidents.
Oh, so, really? I never really took Edler as a dirty player that way. I didn't know.
He's one of those sneaky dirty guys. Like he's the type of guy that might butt end you when the ref's not paying attention. Or he might be the type of guy that if you're being a little too rambunctious and I'm going to hit you, I might accidentally chicken wing you and catch my elbow in your face. Yeah, like he's one of those guys that I don't think he's a dirty player, but he has that switch where he's like, okay, I'll do it then. You know what I mean? Some guys don't.
Do you really think if Tom Wilson went 18 months without an incident, that his next incident he'd be back? Yeah, exactly.
No, that's why I'm joking when I say that to you.
Okay.
It's just like,
okay, I'm trying
to. If that's the number, and the perfect citizen thing to do for Wilson is to be perfectly clean, then he could say, okay, for 18 months I do nothing, and then after that 18 months I'm free to freaking just be a monster again because I'm now not a repeat offender.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying, or are you going to change the rule? It'd be so NHL to be like, oh well, actually we're going to call it the Tom Wilson rule, and if you have this and if you carry the 2 and like, just come on, NHL.
Yeah, come on, get your shit together.
It makes no sense. But yeah, so that's interesting, which kind of brings me to a side point I didn't put here. But after the trade deadline, you have only a restriction of roster moves you can make when you have to call guys up. And because the Leafs were doing these cap shenanigans or changes, whatever you want to call them, they limited themselves. So they still have call-ups available. But because the Toronto Marlies have been on COVID hold, they can't call anybody up. So if they have any forwards that go down, including Hyman now or further forwards, they're going to have to put a defenseman in as a forward because they can't call anybody up from the Marlies. I think they only have 2 calls up anyways left, but still they might have to play like a Dermott or something. It helped that Bogosian got hurt, but they might have to play like a Dermott or something on wing. It
helped that he got hurt.
Well, in this particular situation, but it sucks he got hurt because I actually really like Bogosian. But that brings me to my next point is the Toronto Marlies. They've been canceled, I think, already for 2 weeks, and they're not playing games until the 28th. So another week. So it's basically the Vancouver Canucks of the AHL. And
the Dallas Stars of the AHL.
Well, yeah. So
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. But sorry, actually, the one thing I want to ask you about suspensions is the one theory that I've come up in the past is that if you do something dirty, if you do something that you should not have done, and it causes injury, I think you should not be able to play until that person comes back.
Yeah, maybe. But it leaves an interesting loop of tomfoolery, in my opinion. Like, in theory, you're like, you say you have Brad Marchand. He does his slew foot stuff. He slew foots someone. They get like some scrub. He gets knocked out. He's out for 6 weeks. But he really should only be out 1 week. But they're like, we're about to play them a couple times. We're just gonna keep him out.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I get that. Yeah, but I just feel like there needs to be. Again, it comes down to the ownership. Like the same thing what we talked about with penalties. Like if you need to achieve a certain level, and you don't, that's what penalties are for. That's what these rules and regulations are for. So call them out as it is, and get the shit in line.
Yeah, it's just gonna turn into one of those such like situations where it's gonna be like any no goal situation where we're gonna be everyone's just gonna have their focus on like, yeah, I don't like it.
I think to me the next phase, the next evolution phase of the NHL will be, I'll put it under bracket of entertainment. I think that you're going to start seeing custom skates. I think you're going to start seeing like more ads on jerseys, stuff like that. I think you could potentially maybe even see like glowing sticks or something weird like that on certain nights. But I think the main thing, and I know I've talked about this, I won't get into it too much, but the whole the automatic lights when there's goals or offsides, like there's too much replay. There's too much killing. Like, I know as a Leaf fan, there's been too many times in the last 2 years where it's like, yeah, it's a goal after the hard work, and you're following the ebb and flow, and then it's just like, actually, it's not a goal.
That brings
me called it on the ice as a goal.
Interesting point, just that I kind of thought of about replay while we're just talking about it, is that it came up in baseball recently, specifically, and they talked about how when they go to like New York, or in the NHL's case, Toronto, for the replay, they shouldn't tell the people in Toronto what the ruling on the ice is. The people in Toronto should just make the call, no matter what the ruling is on the ice. And I thought that was a very valid point that they brought up.
I heard that too, and I agreed. But again, if you
it doesn't solve the problem what you're talking about, though, with more replays. It doesn't.
Exactly. And like I know that there's an issue with the actual physical puck, which is the, center of this whole idea. But if you can get that technology, which I'm sure somebody out there can create, to trigger lights when it goes offside, and there's triggers in people's skates and it's an offside, so you don't have to review offsides. Anytime the puck gets touched by a goalie in the trapezoid, light goes off, it's automatic. Anytime the puck goes over the net, light goes on, automatic. You celebrate, it's 100% official. But then you don't have to celebrate and then no goal.
The refs are going to start a pile and say they took our jobs.
But at the same time, you still need refs.
I know.
You need them out there to do what they do, and
you need the zebras.
Call the certain things. Yes. Yeah, like I'm not saying that, but at the same time, maybe you go from 4 to 3, because maybe taking that one body off the ice is a good thing, which I think it is.
Yeah, agreed.
Like you can't make the ice bigger, because you got to think of all the arenas, specifically in North America, that would have to change and lose seating and all of that. You can't do that. Maybe in the future that becomes something different. Maybe that Olympic ice just becomes ice. That's just the standard. But since you can't do that, take bodies off.
Yeah.
Off the playing field. Like it's the only sport that has no out of bounds, right? So take bodies off the field.
Yeah. No. Agreed.
Imagine you had baseball with 9 umpires. How many umpires would get hit with a line drive or get in the way of a fielder trying to make a play or something like that, just because there's too many? I know that that's not where they came from, but just think about it that way, right? It would just be silliness. So maybe it's time to get some of those auto calls, get the bodies down to 2 or even 1, and then, or I meant to say 3 or even 2.
Yeah.
And go from there. But yeah. I know I'm wearing my Leaf jersey, and I know I said to you I wanted to go over the Leafs, but I'm still not ready to do that. I still need another week.
You need to digest what's going on.
Well, it's been frustrating this past series with Vancouver. The way I was thinking it was going to go was pretty much exactly how it went as a Leaf fan. And anytime you're like, this is a slam dunk win for the Leafs, no, it's not actually. It's a slam dunk loss.
Vancouver's had the Leafs numbers this year. For whatever reason.
Everyone has. Every goalie has.
Fair.
I counted this up the other day. I forgot the numbers exactly, but I think it was 4 and 26. I went to each game that the Leafs have played and counted the 3 stars. The Leafs have had 4 goalies named as a 3-star all year. Regardless of every other game, just count the games they're playing in. 26 times
the other team's
goalie has been a 3-star.
That's hilarious.
Take that for what you will, but like clearly there's something in that, whether it's the goalie wanting to, make sure they don't get lit up by the high octane offense of the Leafs or whatever the hell
they just don't have high quality chances. That's it. Pad the stats against the Leafs.
Basically, yeah. But I mean, with the new Nylander was out with the COVID thing, missed a couple of games. The new bodies coming in. Now we got Hyman injured. I just kind of need to see what Foligno looks like. Caught just as we started. I caught the start of the Leaf game, and it was 2-1 and Leafs only had 2 shots, and Winnipeg only had 1 shot. So seems like a good start to the game.
I do like that because I'm playing against Hellebuck in my fantasy league. So
yeah, well, he'll stop the next 42 and they'll win 3-1, or 3-2. So, but yeah, once things settle in and everything,
yeah, sounds good.
I want to talk about them, but we'll give that another week to simmer.
Cool.
We got some news on the start of next season. It came out, I think, yesterday that October 12th is the date that NHL teams were told at the Board of Governors meeting that will be the date of the season to start.
It's basically a normal start, almost.
Ish, yeah.
Like
that's
a
the
week
plan.
late, maybe, but yeah, it's pretty great. We're gonna be like going through playoffs at least until like July. So like we're only gonna have this
draft.
This podcast is gonna keep rolling.
It's going to be bang, 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 bang. Oh, it's preseason again, or the rookie camps. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It'll just be one thing after another.
Yeah.
Playoff baseball in the midst of that, it'll be great.
It's going to be a good time.
But yeah, the only asterisk on that possibility that I've also been hearing, though, is that if the Northern Division cannot get the vaccines in time for that, because as we know, some of them need 2 shots, and often it's 3-4 months between the shot. So some of the players get their first shot in the next, let's call it month, and then they need another 4 months. We're talking about past the start of next season.
Yeah.
Right? So if that's the case, they can't allow travel, which means they would have to keep the Northern Division.
And I still haven't, personally, I haven't heard about the borders being opened up. I don't know. Like,
probably won't be, right?
That's going to... North Division 2.0.
Well, that's the thing, right? And then they were saying that the only way to make it work, because if we loop this all back to competitive balance and shit, it's one thing when the league has known, okay, one division has 7 teams, that's floated around, but it was kind of just understood eventually it'll be equal. Well, now what do you do with Seattle? Because if Seattle is not in Canada, they cannot cross the border. So you can't.
They play out of Canada. They play out of Vancouver Giants Arena.
And how wonderful would that be in your expansion inaugural season? You can't even play in your home building that was rushed to be ready for the inaugural season.
They could actually have had fans at it probably because it's America. So
on top of that, and then if they're now the team that has to live in hotels and stuff like that, well, the Northern Division's living at home now because they're in there that next phase. How is that a competitive balance for your brand new team?
It's not.
Like, what do you say? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it seems like
Seattle.
they're rolling the dice on this one. I'm not sure what they're going to do. I think they're just hoping and praying that Canada comes to its senses and starts letting people cross the border. But
yeah, so that's the only asterisk, and it's a pretty big asterisk.
That is a pretty big one. Yeah,
if you break it down like that, it's completely logical to think we'll still be here by the time we start next season.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's a little worrisome, but at the same time, we're not Seattle, so who knows, right? Who knows what happens? But they're also saying potentially they might just keep Seattle in the States and then have a division that has 1 extra team in it. But then again, is that competitive balance?
Oh, here we go. That's going to be the trigger word of the rest of the season, isn't it? Competitive advantage.
I'm latching on to that now because of Leonard. Anytime that there is something that the NHL does that's a hypocrisy towards that, that's what I'm gonna say from now on.
Yeah, sounds good.
But yeah, so speaking of upcoming seasons, we got the Olympics upcoming, maybe, depending if they go. That's a different topic. I kind of wanted just to tease because I know we'll eventually do some probably obviously in the off season, do a roster breakdown for Canada, US, Sweden, Finland, Russia, and exactly, kind of obviously of active players. We could even, if we wanted to, do a fantasy type thing where it's like, who would you dress all time kind of thing, or from our lifetimes, or our all time Canada roster, or all time whatever. Maybe not the other countries, but maybe just for Canada kind of type thing. But the reason why this was brought up was Roberto Luongo was actually just named the GM of the team, which I was pretty pumped to hear about.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the type of guy that has a lot of character. He has that fake Twitter account that he's always active on. He's always, going. He did a couple of trade deadline things. He's kind of goofy and funny, which I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah,
I've always loved how he played, and I just love his personality. And I think that's important for them to kind of take advantage of. And I think he's the type of guy to be like, you know what? I don't give a shit what Canada's done in the past. I'm going to make my team. I'm Luongo. What are you going to say? You know I'm quirky. You know I'm goofy.
Yeah.
What are you going to challenge? You made a weird decision. Of course I made a weird decision. I'm Luongo. You know
No,
what I
it'll be
mean?
good.
Like, I love it.
I like him. He's represents the country well. So I have no problems with that. Vancouver Canucks treated him a little bad on the way out. The fans, at least, but I think all that's done and done now. So,
but even with him, I don't think he took that personally because I think that he understands how it works, and I think that's why he had the Twitter account to be able to be like, yeah, let's poke at each other on the way out because it's harmless. Like, I'm down, you're down, I'm down. Let's have a good laugh about it and we move on.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But
I think it's a good personality to have. Where often Team Canada is very political and very, I don't know if prestigious is the right word to put it, but like they've had Yzerman and these guys in the past that have been like almost put on a pedestal. And I don't think he really will. I think he's more considered more of a grinder in a sense. And I think that he's the perfect choice. I'm excited to see who he puts on this potential lineup. I think it's going to be really nice to see what he does, and I can't wait. But yeah, let's get into that segment.
All right, boys and girls and dogs and cats, it's time for the 3 stars of the week. Hell yeah. So this one, I honestly had a little bit of trouble with this one. My 3rd star was up in the air. I had trouble. I just kind of settled on one. You go first today.
Okay.
Because you locked her in first, so I'll let you get the honors of going first with our favorite segment.
Perfect. So first off, I will just put a disclaimer on here that I did have somebody else in my 2nd star, but I didn't want to have too many guys on the same team, and I'm actually quite shocked you don't have them. But I will give him a quick shout out. Is Mark Stone. I thought he was going to be a clear-cut pick for somebody.
That's the exact same reason why he didn't make my list. Is I didn't want 2 on the same team because I didn't feel like they deserved to.
Okay, fair enough.
And I'm starting to give him love for the other ones, so I'll get to that on my 2nd.
Exactly, and the one I had to give props to, and it's funny because I actually filled this out this morning.
Yeah,
I don't know if you noticed that. I filled it out this morning, and it was before I even watched the interview or anything. But Robin Lehner is my 3rd star. 2-0 with 1 shutout. He in 4 games, he's given up 4 goals in his last 3 games. Including that shutout, so he's rolling along, and then on top of the stuff we just talked about his interview and everything, I would actually push that up to make him the 1st star for both of us on the week. But he's 3rd star for me this week.
Awesome
in terms of performance on the ice. 2nd star, I had to, like I said, I was going to go give it to Stone, but I didn't want to have Lehner and Stone. Same thing, I didn't feel like they really deserved it, so I went with Artemi Panarin. He led the league on the last 7 days in points with 9, 3 goals, 6 assists. 2 of them were power play points with a game winner. So I thought he deserved a shout out because the Rangers are surging right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to be able to get in. I don't think they should get in and whatnot.
It's a steep hill to climb. That's for sure.
Yeah. But if you look if you sort by league points, you'll be surprised how high they are in the league.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think if this was a regular year, they'd be in the playoffs.
Could be. And I know we're going to get to the power rankings in the future, but when I was doing them, that's what I did is I was looking at the overall standings and then kind of tiered them and took a little bit of the hot streaks and cold streaks out of them. And the Rangers, I had to move down 2 tiers based on the teams that they were in the same range as. Like, it was pretty incredible. Like, they're up in terms of points with, like, Edmonton and Nashville.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's pretty high. But, yeah, so we'll see what happens with them. I'll go to my 1st star. Another goalie, obviously. I got to give the goalie love.
You love the goalies, I know.
I got it. Unless a forward really stands out, which is tough because sometimes there's 6 or 7 that stand out. But then amongst those 6 or 7, there's not one who stands out amongst those ones. So sometimes, my attention goes to the goalie because they stand out a little bit more. But I picked Tuukka Rask, 3-0 since after the game he came back, but he is 4-0 since he returned. 133 goals against, 955 save percentage, which is perfect timing, specifically for me who owned him as a fantasy goalie, and he missed the entire important part of the season. But now that I don't need him, he is doing fantastic. So that is great for me.
Hell yeah, for sure.
And that's my 3 stars for the week.
Sounds good. All right, moving on to my 3 stars of the week. We're going to start things off with my 3rd star. I'm giving it to Mr. Brady Kachuk. I just wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to Ottawa in general. They're really just competing pretty strongly down the stretch here. Matt Murray, a little side goalie, shout out to him. He's had some 3 solid good games for Ottawa his past 3 games. But for Brady, 5 points over the past 4 games, and the Sens are 3-1, and they got the winning record. And honestly, I think they're could pass Calgary at this rate. Things keep up.
Maybe
could be crazy.
And I actually called that. Remember earlier in the season, I said I kind of feel like they might not be the last team.
You did.
I retracted that, but I did say that.
Yeah, if you throw enough shit at the wall, eventually it sticks. What?
Exactly. But if I was the Senators, if I was the coaching staff, I would be like, all right, team, assuming it hasn't been broken, but the whole shutout thing, I'd just be like, let's try and get through the season without being shut out. Who cares about the wins?
They've got to be happy with the way the season's turned out, even though, I kind of said at the beginning of the season, playing the same teams, these solid, fast skating teams, it's going to help all those young guys develop. They're going to be fun to watch in the next coming years.
I'm just praying they don't draft a big defenseman, because if they do, I don't want to watch the Leafs lose to them for the next 7 years. But anyways, back to your 2nd star.
2nd star, I give it to Shea Theodore, and we touched on it. I almost gave it to Stone in this situation, but Vegas, they're on an 8-game winning streak, and really you can give it to so many different players on this team. But for me, I'm giving it to Shea, and a big part of it has to do with his impact he's had on the power play. Over the past 4 games, or past 3 games, he's gotten 4 power play points, really filling in that role that a lot of people thought Pietrangelo was going to do for this team, but he's taken the number 1 power play spot on this team, and he's a monster on that back end. You always got to watch out for his shot. He's got some good vision, and overall that first power play in general is amazing. So I think you put a Pietrangelo would do just fine back there. And
don't they have a really solid second unit too?
Oh, their second unit's good. Yeah. Their second unit would be a first unit on some teams. But yeah, so that's my 2nd star, and it's just a shout out Vegas. They're stepping up. Colorado had that huge run, and now it's their turn, and they're
first in the league.
First in the league. They do have 2 games on Colorado, so if Colorado won both games, they'd be tied. But
yeah, but still,
you got to win them, right? And that brings me to my 1st star. Just had to do it. Connor McDavid. This guy is by far carrying the Edmonton Oilers on his back. He does have his buddy sidekick Draisaitl, but I do emphasize sidekick on this instant. 8 points in the past 3 games. And the thing that stood out to me the most was the minutes that this guy is logging per game. Mm-hmm. In those 3 games, 27 minutes for a forward. Insane. I don't think I've seen something like that.
That's a lot.
From what I can remember. And I wanted to make sure that these didn't go to overtime, and they didn't. Just throwing that out there. Non-overtime, 27 minutes. Got to give it to Connor McDavid.
Wow. I just did the quick math. How many times do you think McDavid, between you and I, has been picked as a star this season? Over how many weeks?
I know I picked him at least once in first, because when I was typing it into the spreadsheet, it tried to auto-populate it. So I did pick him at least once in the 1st star.
So there's been 12 weeks times 6. What's 12 times 6?
70.
So
72.
Out of 70, 72, whatever it is, possible selections, he's been picked 4 times.
Yeah, and I looked over there, and 3 of them were me on the 1st star, and I gave him 1st star on all of them.
In fairness, because that sounds a little crazy that I've only picked him once. I haven't counted, but looking through, I've picked Draisaitl like 5 times. So that probably shows my bias as a fantasy owner.
That's why I kind of emphasized the sidekick part, just to see how you would react, because I know how much you like Draisaitl. So
yeah, he's my boy. Him and
it's just hard because to be it, we expect this from Connor McDavid, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I emphasized the thing that stood out to me the most was his time on ice. It's insane.
Yeah, it is. That's a lot. That's a lot. Draisaitl's is probably up there as well. Which to me as a player, I would love, as long as I don't get hurt. Like I would love that. Like when I play, I play as defense. I don't really play ever as forward anymore unless I really want to just have shits and giggles. But as a defenseman, like the more defensemen, if you get above 4, 5, 6, 7 defensemen, I play my worst games. Like I play like shit because I can't.
That was me too.
I feel the game a lot, so I just like I can't get into it, and then all of a sudden I take a penalty or whatever, and then I'm not really contributing. And
no, it's interesting
on the ice
for sure because this is the way you should be utilizing these stars, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be
That's the question in Toronto, right? Like you're paying all this money. I get it. You want to keep the sports science numbers in check. I get it. You want to keep them healthy and you want to keep them prepared for the playoffs. But come playoffs this year, they better be let go. Like they better play if they are ready to go back on the ice. Like go.
That's what I like. Like as long as McDavid, like if he's ramping up for playoffs, he could be scary.
But are they going to burn him out because he's playing at this level?
That's what I mean.
And then he gets into the playoffs, turns it up a bit. Like a Winnipeg,
who knows?
Maybe
Man.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Especially if they line up against Winnipeg, I think that's the worst for them. Toronto's probably up there as well, but just because their advantage is those two guys at center. But once you compare those to the centers in Toronto and Winnipeg in a playoff matchup, it's almost you can't call it a wash. That's crazy to call it a wash because you can't. But in the sense of matchups and coaching, it in theory they should be a washout, right? It should be the guys around that make the difference maker. But, yeah.
All right. Do you want to go on to look at the standings?
I just wanted to tease a couple things quick too, just because I was flipping through tabs here. Just I know I referred to the power rankings earlier. We can go over that next week, I guess, but we're just going to do much like power rankings you see everywhere else. Not quite the same as yours in baseball, but in terms of kind of tiering them or layering them, we'll go over and discuss where we see teams that actually fit. And then in terms of the awards, I want to make a sheet where we can predict who's going to win the awards. I know we made one prediction at the start of the podcast for the season. I don't remember off the top of our heads who we picked, but I wouldn't mind.
For what? What one did we pick for?
We talked about picking the Calder.
Oh, okay. Did I pick it?
That was it.
Okay.
You said Stützle.
Oh, I thought that
his card or whatever.
No, I placed a bet on it.
Bet. Sorry, yeah.
I didn't know if I actually believed he would win the Calder. I just thought his odds were like 9-1, so I was like, probably someone has to score on Ottawa, right? So.
I think that's like probably verbatim with exactly what you just said about the bet and everything. Somebody has to score and everything. So I think that's why you picked Stützle, and I think I picked Sorokin. That would be very me to pick a goalie. But I don't know. I picked Kaprizov.
No way.
I did because I said he was an older guy coming over that had already played years in the KHL. I'm quite.
I got to go back and watch this. So
we got to go back. I want to start moving forward and predict.
Yeah, if somebody out there is watching this, can you just go back and look for us and what we said? Because
I'm pretty sure I said that because I don't think I went with Lafreniere. I'm quite confident.
I didn't even know who Kaprizov was until halfway through the season. No, joking.
I did. I drafted him in both of my fantasy leagues.
I know you did. That's why I knew who he was.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's get after those teases. The last thing we got for today is the standings breakdown, which, like you said, is often my favorite thing. So
I'm gonna put up our spreadsheet here, which isn't necessarily what the standings are. It's where we are kind of predicting how things are gonna go. So like if you take a look here, we have our tier A is like our top 6 teams are in blue. Tier B is like the next 6 after that. They're all in green. And then the middling kind of teams are yellow, with the bottom 10 being orange and the bottom 5 being red. We've been doing this. We had the preseason one, and then we had like the midpoint one, and now we're on to the post-deadline one, and it's the last one before final.
Just to be clear on there, the ones that are in gray on the end, those ones are just going to kind of stay and be edited once the final season's done. So we have the reference, just because we have another tab over here as well where we're going to actually track our playoff breakdown. So I already have based on who actually finishes in what spot, auto-populates so that we don't have to keep filling in things.
Yeah, sounds good.
So you pick a division. Where do you want to start?
Let's just start from left to right. Or with the North. Just making sure it fits in there because I changed it for a second. But yeah, let's start with the North. I still think my North has basically stayed the same. Oh, no, wait. I do have a little different. I think Calgary's even worse. Calgary,
Calgary's just going like this.
Yeah, you see that. They're just kind of going diagonal. I think for the most part...
Honestly, sorry, but you should honestly move Ottawa above Calgary just so it's like Connect 4, just so you have the line downward.
No, that's where Calgary's going to end last in the season, and then there'll be a complete diagonal.
Exactly, yeah. Have that full down diagonal. Connect 4.
Exactly. So for me, the top 4 have remained the same, at least for the last while. I don't really see it changing. Vancouver would need a miracle to even come close to knocking Montreal off, and I don't think Montreal is better than any of the 3 teams above them. And then I think the top 2 are significantly better than the rest. I'm still giving Toronto that blue color. I don't know if I believe it, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I think on paper and overall they're just a star-studded team that should be able to handle it once it comes time.
If they're playing in the gear that they're supposed to, they should be the top team clearly. But whether or not they do, that's a different.
But that's the thing. You can't play in your top gear all season long, or you're not going to be ready for playoffs. You're going to burn out. So I'm okay with what's going on the last little bit. I know a lot of fans are freaking right now, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to remain a little bit optimistic. Like I said, why I wanted to hold off a bit, just because the injuries are coming, the new guys are coming. It's going to take a couple of games. I've said multiple times, new goalies on new teams are never at their best. So people need to kind of just chill on Reddit a little bit. But it's tough because you see what's going on. And I've said it in the past, like with the Zamboni driver and whatever, you talk about any of these scripts with the Toronto Maple Leafs and you're like, yeah, but Vancouver hasn't played for 3 weeks. Yeah, but they haven't done any practices or training. Yeah, half of their team is missing. Yeah, they have half of the AHL team. Yeah, they have no idea what they're fucking talking about. But they come out, who's going to win? Oh, clearly it's the best team in the division that's going to win. They're going to come out and dominate. They come out, they fly around. Who wins? The Leafs.
I'm honestly not surprised though with Vancouver. That there's like everybody was counting them out. It's almost like brought their team together.
But the problem is they should have been the better team for the first half of the game, and then going into the last period of the game, they should have been losing their jam. The Leafs should have just been able to go and break them down and do what a good team does. I know that a lot of times this year they've been, they've held other teams and then come back and won it in the third. I just don't think that it's just a Leaf brand now. Like it's not that I don't believe or whatever you want to say, but it's just on brand now for the Leafs to just have these situations that they just don't do anything. But that's part of it. I want to let the new guys come in and whatever. If a week from now we record this and the Leafs have lost 2 or 3 of those games as well, you're going to hear a little bit of panic. But I need to just be responsible a little bit. But yeah.
All right, what's your take on the rest of this division?
Yeah, so I mean, when I first started with the predictions at the beginning, I know that I had mentioned I had a bet with Montreal and Winnipeg. So I think in my standings, I subconsciously wanted Winnipeg to finish really, really low. And I know even through the season, I've been pushing Montreal to finish ahead of them. That obviously no longer looks to be the case. Mm-hmm. I did at the beginning of the season think that one of Winnipeg or Calgary was going to be good and the other one was not going to be so much. That's why I had them as the same early, just because I couldn't tell which one it was going to be. But now coming to post-trade deadline, I do think Winnipeg missed out on getting a big-time defenseman that would have pushed them up into the blue. Would have pushed them up into the top of the division with Toronto or maybe even above them. Mm-hmm. But since they swung and a miss on that and the Leafs added, I think by default you have to give the respect and the whatever to Toronto, which is maybe kind of what you're saying too. Just like by default they should be at the top. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal. Montreal is doing all they can to try and screw this opportunity up, and Carey Price is now hurt. They're missing a couple of their guys. Gallagher's hurt, which is kind of their ticker, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried about them. But
I think they're lucky that they have such a cushion. Otherwise, they'd be in jeopardy.
yeah. But these teams like Vancouver don't have as many games left to be played. Or sorry, have more games left to be played, but then less days to complete them in. So even if they climb that hill and they get back into that playoff race, once they get to the playoffs, you think they're going to have a lot left in the tank. I think that it, like you said, averages even out. I think, they might win a couple, but I think Montreal will probably end up being the team in there, which terrifies me as a Leaf fan because there's no good matchup for Toronto, just because of whatever. And normally you'd say there's some teams that maybe the Leafs have the better goalie, but Mike Smith has been playing out of his mind, and then obviously Hellebuck and Allen and Price.
I personally think of all the teams that the Leafs could face, Montreal is probably the best they could hope for.
You're also not a Leaf fan saying that, so
yeah, so it's unbiased opinion. So you should...
I mean, if I'm also being honest with you, at the beginning of the year, I had a dream.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Well, okay, so I'll be honest. So a family friend passed away, and they were all Montreal Canadiens fans, and we've always had a little bit of a friendly rivalry. Okay. I had a dream that I watched the Maple Leafs lose. It was kind of one of those dreams where it was stretched out in times. I watched the Maple Leafs lose, and then I was at these people's house watching, and I watched the buzzer go and the Habs win. I don't remember who they were playing, but the Habs won. They were celebrating and with the cup and everything like that. And I was on the couch in the room with the father who had passed away. So it was just really weird for me because it was so real till I woke up and I was like,
so you think it could be
season's just starting?
This could be like an Angels in the outfield kind of thing with the Canadians.
In my world, it would make sense.
Yeah. Wow.
But outside my world, who fucking knows? But I it was so vivid, and it was weird because I woke up, like what you said. Sometimes you wake up believing something is true. I thought the season had concluded, and the Habs had won the cup until the next afternoon. I was like, "Oh, the Leafs are playing." Wait, what? I woke up convinced the Habs had won the cup, and I had changed time space.
The mind is a powerful thing, man.
Right, but yeah, the what is it? 1979 is the year I want to say is the last time the Leafs have played the Habs in the playoffs. And listening as a Leaf fan with the Habs winning the cup and their runs that we've seen them and stuff, all I need to hear now is how the Leafs, as a favorite, lost to the Habs, and they won't get another chance for years. And nothing's changed since '79. I don't need that in my life. I can't handle that in my life. It would be very Leaf to do that.
You and Jesse could start a support group.
Yeah, I guess my point of all of this is if the Leafs are going to lose, I can personally deal with them losing to the Jets or the Oilers long before I can be okay with them losing to the Habs in the first round. Yeah. Second round, okay, maybe a different situation. Obviously, that's not probably logically going to work. But in the first round this year against the Habs with their injuries and question marks and all that stuff, if the Leafs lose to the Habs, I don't know, man. I might have some mental problems.
Damn. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can see it happen and then watch the podcasts and then look back.
watch me watch the downfall.
Well, that's the beauty of the podcast is we documented the whole thing, man. You document me when I had hair down to here and pandemic hair.
When we start doing this podcast and we start talking about more broad scope NHL, it's really allowed me kind of step outside the bubble of the Leafs and feel everything about it. So when I have things about the Leafs, I tell a lot of my friends, the Leafs aren't going to win the cup this year. Part of me is just saying that just to become okay with it. But at the same time, the things I'm seeing, the type of team with these problems I'm seeing game in and game out are not going to go far. I often
get called a bandwagoner, which to me is ridiculous. But it's because I kind of have that mentality where I watch the sport more as a whole, and I just enjoy watching, for instance, the Detroit Tigers play the Pittsburgh Pirates today. No one enjoys that. I enjoyed it because it was a power rankings battle, right?
That's true. There's something else, and that's what fantasy helps with too a lot of the times because we get exposure to different layers of guys. So then once we start seeing them play, it's not just player A, B, Y, whatever. It's
and
guys
I've always been one to kind of shed the tribalism of I know it's just getting deeper, but like I am not a bandwagoner. I'm loyal. I cheer for my teams. It's just I get over it pretty quick.
Yeah, I get that, but I also feel like I used to just be like, oh yeah, Leafs are going to win the cup every year, and like you do your predictions, it's like, oh, the Leafs are going to win this series, and they don't ever. I feel like by doing this, it's like, no, this team on paper, are they actually better than this team on paper? And I can actually like step out and like look at things instead of just being like, no, Leafs, like everybody, Leafs best goal, best play. Like I feel like a lot of people are like that in the Toronto media.
Yeah.
It's just like pumping stocks almost, right? They're pumping the Leafs. And it's just like,
yeah, the Leafs are the biggest definition in the media of the pump and dump. They pump it all the way up and then they dump on it all the way down.
Yeah. And that's why it's difficult sometimes to be a Leaf fan, because like I don't want to be on that ride. I want to just, if it merits getting excited, hell yeah, I'm on the ride for it. But like, if they're shitty, well, you better be shitty and get good draft picks and like do things right. Like I can't be. Not to get off on Buffalo here or anything, but like if you're a fan and you see your team's not doing it right and they suck, like it's hard to believe in what's coming, right? And that's where it gets scary for some franchises. I'm not there, but it's I don't know. Being a favorite in the division still isn't giving me peace. But anyways, that's all I'm going to say on the Leafs for now.
Yeah, we hit that north hard. It's time. Let's move on to the West.
Yeah, let's hit it up. So this is obviously going to be the division that will play the Northern Division or whoever comes out of it.
Yep.
You take it off.
Yeah, I'll take it off. I still, like, for me, I got Vegas top of the division. I thought they were the best team coming into the season, middle of the season, and now I think they're still the best. However, I did promote Colorado back to blue. I lost a little bit of faith around the midway of the season, as you see that. I dropped them to fourth. I made them green. I was like, you guys can't score. So the goalie's kind of shaky, like all this stuff. And then I swear after that episode, they started just rocking teams. I think that's when they went on their 10
the whisper.
They started rocking everybody in like 10-game win streak, and that they're definitely a solid team all around, and very much like if this was a regular season and it was conferences, I think these two teams would be the top two in the West on a regular season, and we're very likely going to see a collision course of them in the playoffs as well, which if you've watched them play this year at all against each other, like almost every game's a 1-goal game. They're intense game. They're high caliber games. They're very fun to watch. In third place now, I have Minnesota. So I guess I've had them consistently there. It's just the St. Louis and that calling around. St. Louis, I still think the four teams are still the same as what I picked all season. To make the playoffs. I just think they're a notch above the other four in this division. I have now the Kings still in that fifth spot. I still think they're the fifth best team in this division. They have a big, bright future ahead of them, and good things to come for them. Whereas Arizona, I have them in the same tier. So like really these teams could swap. I just have Kings trending up, Arizona trending down in my mind. And then the Sharks, I don't know. I think they're a mess. They've been performing well, and at one point, really in the hunt for a playoff spot. And like realistically, those three teams I just named all could have a chance at making the playoffs if the Blues continue to struggle the way they have. And Anaheim just a clear last in this division.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, I said a lot of that's spot on. I agree with a lot of that. I think we kind of came to the conclusion in the last episode that we were both on the same train as well with the St. Louis, that at any given point they can run off 8 straight and define themselves in the playoff race and leave all those other kind of middlers in the dust. Hasn't happened yet. Still has runway for it. Part of that is the fact that they can't get goaltending at all right now. But similarities come in their team to the Leafs, not as much as the offensive firepower, but in terms of the question marks for a good team with questionable goaltending. In terms of the other teams for me after that, I kind of really struggled to be honest. Every time I came back to the spreadsheet, I changed them around and I couldn't figure it out. And I almost got to a point where I just wanted to kind of like, rock, paper, scissors it. But what made me finally decide the order I'm going to go in is I'm pick the order of teams most likely to fuck their situation up.
Yeah.
So who is the least best? That's the worst way to put it. Who is the least effective managed team, and who will, dress the wrong players down the stretch and win 7 straight to miss the playoffs and also change their draft order by 5 slots. You know what I mean? Like San Jose hasn't been doing anything right for a while. Arizona's just a freaking mess. So that's why I picked Arizona first by missing, because they're the biggest mess. San Jose is the next biggest mess, and then the Kings are doing it right.
A good way to approach this.
That's
the
why
bottom 4 of this division. That makes a lot of sense.
So I figured Arizona would be that team that would, continue to play Kemper after they didn't trade him. He's coming off the injury reserve.
I swear when I looked at this earlier, you had St. Louis missing. Was I wrong?
Had what?
St. Louis missing. I thought I saw that. Maybe I was wrong.
I did. I had Arizona in, and then I was like, what are you thinking? Arizona won't make it. I lost confidence in St. Louis more than I gained or lost confidence in Arizona. Put it that way.
The thing with Arizona, like, they just can't score.
And they lost Garland for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Garland's out for the season, basically.
I just don't see it. Like, there's so many times. Like, if I need a shutout, a miracle shutout, I'm picking the goalie against Arizona most days.
Or Detroit, one of the two.
Detroit scores more than them, it seems like.
They do. Yeah, especially lately because they have nothing to lose, right? No pressure.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah.
Central Division. This one's interesting. I'll let you kick things off because I kicked things off in the last 2.
Yeah. So then this one I know that we talked about again last episode, and I was like, I have to keep Tampa in first just because of consistency. I can't just because when I look at it on paper, we're ignoring playoffs, right? So like we're ignoring the fact that Tampa's going to get Stamkos and Kucherov back.
Yeah, we're predicting the ending standings at this point,
but not the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I guess we're saying the same thing. But the reason why I picked Carolina is because Carolina is still getting a couple bodies back, specifically Teravainen, who has always been really good for them. So no matter how you want to slice it, that's a top 6 winger, top 6 playmaker. That can help contribute towards more goals where they have all the other elements in place. I think Carolina has another gear to get to as long as the goaltending keeps up while the team is kind of clicking. Tampa Bay is just losing a bit of steam. I actually think Florida has potential to pass them as well because they're still kicking. Florida is still right there after losing Ekblad and everything.
Dredger went down today. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, some sort of lower body injury. He's at least not playing today, so I don't know if it's a long-term thing or.
Well, they got Spencer Knight.
Yep.
Stud from the NCAA, so they're fine.
And he had an amazing game the other day.
He did. I think that Florida versus Tampa could be an interesting playoff matchup because you have potentially Ekblad coming back. Maybe. I don't know what his timeline is. Probably not. But then you have Stamkos and Kucherov coming back for Tampa, which could affect their offense or power play, stuff like that. Like that could be like a really weird series.
To me, the playoffs are shaping up to be the first round is always the most interesting. Jeez, It's going to be good.
And to be honest, some of the picks I picked came from the desire of what matchup I wanted to see. So almost like speaking it into existence.
Yeah, we know it plenty well by now.
Exactly. So I had a challenge, much like you probably did, for this 4th spot in this division between Dallas and Nashville. I haven't paid attention to Dallas in the last couple of days, but I know they had 4 in a row against Detroit.
Yeah, they won the first 2.
They won the first 2, and they had 3 games in hand on Nashville. So assuming they also win both on Detroit and Nashville goes 500, wins 1, loses 1, Dallas will be ahead of Nashville in the next day or 2 with games in hand. Now, obviously, you have to win those, but they announced that, Bishop and Radulov weren't going to play this season, but they didn't say they wouldn't play in the playoffs. And Tyler Seguin should be back in the next little bit. Nashville has some injuries as well, so I don't know who's gonna come out of that. But I know I've been saying Dallas a little bit before. I still I still think they're built better than Nashville is. Nashville is a good team, but they're just built a little bit incorrectly, I'd call it. I feel like there's a couple elements that are wrongly placed there. But yeah, I went with Dallas just because I wanted to see Dallas in the playoffs more than Nashville, although I wouldn't be upset if Nashville was in there.
Yeah. So for me, I pulled a Tory, and I put Nashville in fourth so that I could speak it into existence, because they were my pick to go to the Cup. So
yeah, to still have them in there.
I can't give up on them just yet. But you can see the trajectory. It goes from blue to green, or from blue to yellow to yellow.
Yeah.
But whatever, you get what I'm saying.
Still.
But overall, I'm just giving Tampa, keeping that consistent. I still think the goalie is the best in the division. If they might have the better players for the time being, but they can rely on him at the very least.
But if you need to rest him and play McElhinney, you're probably losing those games. So
that's not happening. Yeah, it might. But overall, I think Chicago, Dallas, and Nashville are all like in that same tier. Dallas probably realistically gets in there, and part of me kind of wants to see them. They did go to the Stanley Cup last year, right? So to see them miss would kind of be sad, and a lot of it from the crappy start to the season to missing some of their key players the whole year. It'd be nice to see them get in there. And honestly, if they get in there and play Tampa first round, that's a rematch right there. Then and there, they could have their
potentially second round, maybe.
Exactly, they could have their revenge match, and they could be really hyped for that. So if Dallas gets in, they're going to be super dangerous. Honestly,
because you got to think about it from the Dallas perspective. There was a lot of Dallas stars who were really upset and really heartbroken over what happened last year. If things go back to the way they were after this season, the only opportunity they'd have at redemption against Tampa would be in the final, right?
Yep. So
where this year they could get redemption in the first or second round. So I think it's almost meant to be, right?
Almost.
So, I want to see that rematch. I really do. That's why I picked them.
So I've also downgraded Columbus to red. Because I think they're just terrible. They've done a terrible job this year. They're tied with Detroit in the standings. I don't know if you've seen that. That's not a good sign. They're absolutely tied points-wise, games-wise with Detroit. That's rough.
That's bad.
That's rough.
Yeah.
So
and we've talked about this with Columbus before. What is the point other than having to get somebody in and other than having to pay two people to do one job? Why is Tortorella still in Columbus?
I don't know.
It makes no sense to me. Like, we were talking about it, what, 4 weeks ago? Like, just
6
weeks
weeks ago, maybe. Like,
rip the Band-Aid off. Rip it off.
Yeah,
throw it away.
So they're probably the most downgraded team I've had all season now. Started them in green and now they're red. So that's pretty significant. Whereas I had Chicago red and now they're yellow, so a little bit of an upgrade for them. No orange.
I just didn't think Chicago's goaltending and Kane's incredible season would stay as hot, and I just feel like they would kind of, even if they flatlined, I figured like Dallas and Nashville still had the potential to kind of still
exactly. And that's why I still have them in the middling tier, because I think going forward they're setting up a pretty good position to be competitive at least next year as well. Right in that middling tier, right on the playoff bubble next year as well. So,
especially if Rask signs there.
Will it into existence?
No, that won't happen because they found Lankin out of nothing, so he's now their guy there.
Yeah. That basically wraps it up for me on that one.
Yeah, so let's head to the East, I guess.
All right, last division here, the Mass Mutual Division. Forgot that these had all these names. Yeah. So for me, there's a couple things I did here. My top four stayed the same in terms of order. Top three stayed the same in terms of color. I upgraded Pittsburgh to a color. I upgraded their color, which is surprising considering how their goalie's been, especially this past week. I just think the division is so strong, and overall, if I put them all against each other, I think they would be really much in that. Rangers wise, I bumped them up a little bit here. I like the Rangers. Watched a lot of them down the stretch because of Shesterkin. and yet teams below the Rangers, I just don't see them being able to compete. Like the Rangers specifically against Philly, for example, just smashed Philly multiple times down the stretch here. Buffalo still red. Devils, I think, are trending in the right direction. Maybe. Still orange, though. I don't know if they're going to be able to get out of that. It's a steep hill to climb league-wide. So they still got some moves to make. Maybe the draft pick will help them out. Who knows?
I think we can. I think we can agree that Jersey and Buffalo are clearly just kind of out of the picture right off the get-go.
Yeah.
They're not really part of the conversation. I feel like Philly should have been, and I feel like their goaltending has just been so bad that they're not allowed to be in the conversation. Basically,
I worry.
Even though I have them fifth,
I worry for them. I don't know if that like based on this season, if next season is going to be any different for them.
Yeah, but Philly's like what you always talk about Calgary. Philly's that same team that, you're like they're trash this year and they come out and they win the division. And then next year you're like, okay, they're going to be good and they miss the playoffs. And you're like, okay, which beast are you?
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe
that makes it hard for the manager too, right?
Yeah,
to make decisions.
It could be very well be a product of this division because right off the bat, you got to admit this division is by far the best.
Yeah.
So
it's the least weak.
It's the least weak. And is Buffalo as bad as their record? Probably not.
They just couldn't score. If they could have scored more,
well,
maybe got a bit better timely goaltending, they would have been just as good as Jersey, if not above Jersey, or Philly even for that matter.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I think in a given year we could see, even though they're all East Coast teams, like on a given year we could possibly see 6 of these teams in the playoffs. Wouldn't be a shocker, right? So. Overall,
and a healthy Eichel too, right?
Yeah,
we gotta state that as well.
So yeah, I think the biggest thing to note here is that I have Islanders blue, Washington blue. They're tied right now for division lead. I'm giving the edge to Washington because they've been there, done that. Islanders though are snipping at their heels, and they're going for it. Like they have the goalies, they have the defense, they have the team. They could very well make a splash in this playoffs too.
Yep, I agree for sure. I think in this division as well, I guess after we've talked about it a bunch, we've already clearly stated that we agree the same 4 teams are going to be in there. But this is another part where I struggled personally trying to pick the order. I don't even think I know that I have blue in the top just because of the way that we numbered the restrictions of how we could color them.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, they should all be the same color. Just a matter of which way they're listed, but it's just hard once you look league wide to keep that consistent through as well. But same thing, I agree. Washington's just in the best situation to remain on top, especially with the additions that they had. Their only potential question mark might be goaltending, but we'll see what happens with that. But in terms of the other 3, I'm not going to lie, I changed it a bunch of times. Every time I came on here, I changed it, and then I went back to my default as what playoff matchups do you want to see, and put it that way. Okay. So I wanted to see Pittsburgh versus Washington, and I wanted to see Boston and Islanders, just because I feel like they're the same teams almost, where Washington, Pittsburgh, they're similar molds-ish. So I want to see who comes out of that is the best team of that mold. And then same thing with Boston and Islanders. They're pretty similar mold as well. So why don't you guys face, and then whatever's the best at that mold comes out of that.
So what made you put Boston ahead of Islanders then?
I think they're ready to go on a heater here. They weren't healthy. They also they were using their 4th and 5th goalies that were kids, and they were still doing fine. While they had injuries and stuff like that, their power play was okay, but not great. Their power play just has heated up a ton. And Rask is heating up, and Halak is coming back tonight or tomorrow. So they'll have their 2 tandem guys back. Rask is hot. I think that they're probably going to be one of the top 4 teams or 5 teams over the last 10 games. I think that they'll have one of the best winning records.
Oh, cool.
So I'll put them at the top.
That makes sense to me.
I always look for difference makers. To me, the Islanders and the Bruins are the same, other than the fact that the Bruins have that top line. So if you played 100 games between Boston and Islanders, I would like my chances a lot that Boston would win more than 50% of the time. So that's kind of the theory I took.
Personally like the Islanders' depth over Boston's, especially on forward. They addressed it even more at the trade deadline. Islanders are good.
I think the difference maker in that series, if it was Boston Islanders, would come down to the power play. So if you ignore everything else and you compared the power plays,
I would take
without Lee.
Yeah,
without Lee.
Boston. I would agree. Boston does have a better power play.
And I think that's going to be what it comes down to. And goalies,
what about the coach factor?
Say what you will about Islanders goalies, but that's a factor, absolutely. But in the playoffs, we know goaltending can be questioned, whatever you want to call it. I know Rask has had his issues in the past, but you can always turn to Halak, and between the two of them, you're going to get something. Where maybe it's not so much with the Islanders, because if Varlamov has a really shitty game and they turn to Sorokin, who also has a shitty game, now all of a sudden the Islanders don't look so scary and maybe they get whimpered out, right? So, yeah. I don't know.
Damn. We did it. We went over the standings. That was a long one. It's a good podcast. Good podcast.
That's why we changed it to once every while, not every episode.
Well, we've come and grown. Before, we didn't always have a lot to talk about. We'd always just, let's do the standings, let's do it.
Yeah.
But now we're starting to get our shit together. We're good. We're becoming baller. It took 44 episodes, but we're starting to get our stuff together.
I think the content is actually kind of coming now. So
yeah, it's good.
Just off the top of the head, galaxy brain stuff.
Scatter. We'll talk about this for 5 seconds. Go over here for 5 seconds. No, it's been good. It's been fun. It's been a fun 44 episodes. Yeah, it's good to have two difference of opinions, really, and two people with different perspectives, different sides of the country. It's coast to coast. It's what we stand for. Yep. So exactly. It's good stuff. Anything else? Well, before we call it a pod.
Oh, let's call it. Gonna go watch the Leaf game. Like I said, I knew it was 2-1 after 3 shots, so I'm gonna restart that so I catch those. All right. I turned my phone on airplane, so there's no spoilers coming my way. But we'll see how that goes.
All right, enjoy. We'll talk soon.
Awesome, man. Later.
Bye.